Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Why did I open with that line? Why? Anywho, hello everyone and welcome to Module 6 of English 1105. I'm Miss Williams here to talk to you about digital rhetoric. Today's focus is going to be on the digital aspect of the rhetorical appeals and how you can still apply them to digital spaces. And since digital spaces is the theme of our class this semester, I thought we would do a module just to talk about how you don't have to necessarily have pen and paper in order to invoke the rhetorical appeals that we've been talking about in this class. For a quick review of what those even are, you have logos, which is logic. Don't feel like you actually have to say logos. No one ever says logos. So if you just want to say logic or the appeal to logic, that's fine. Then you have ethos. Ethos is just a fancy word for credibility, or if you can trust the author. Why is the author an expert on what they're talking about? Then you have pathos, which is the appeal to emotions, or how an author can play on their audience's emotions. And then you have kairos, which is the element of time, timeliness, and relevancy. Okay, so now that we've reviewed what the heck those even are, I want to show you guys this handy dandy tool in our textbook, Understanding Rhetoric. So remember this thing? Super fun. Comic book style, which is also super fun. But if you look at this page, it's at the, I'm just going to completely cover my face. That's fine. Yeah. So if you look on page 67 and 66, those are those pages. You have this really cool map that walks you through how to kind of analyze a person's, or I guess not a person's, but an article. Or in this case, we're going to look at two pieces of digital rhetoric or digital something. We're going to look at two advertisements. And what I would like for you guys to do is find two advertisements. I'm going to give you some examples in a second. And you're going to walk through that map on page 67 and 66. So the first question is, what's the rhetorical situation? The second question is, what's the writer's ethos? The third question is, how does the writer use logos? Fourth is, how does the writer use pathos? And five, what's the takeaway? So on this nice little map here, you're going to walk me through analyzing two digital ads that we will then compare and contrast to each other. That sounds like a lot, so let's hold up. Let's just rewind, okay? Here's what you're going to do. Find two digital advertisements. What does that mean, Miss Williams? Well, that means a commercial. That means an ad you found online, but it needs to be a substantial ad. It can't just be like something that popped up on your Twitter feed, right? So find something you can really dig in and analyze. This shouldn't be like a long analysis, and analysis, right? So just long enough for you to walk through the questions on that page. Answer all the questions on the map for each advertisement, and then look at your answers for each advertisement, and then talk about what's similar, what's different, talk about how rhetoric is working or maybe not working in those two ads. Now, you're probably thinking, Miss Williams, there's a lot to pick. How do I know what's worth spending my time on? Well, let me share my screen with you, and maybe we can talk about some things that you want to look for in when you're picking your advertisements, right? So one of the best commercials, just in general, are Nike commercials. Whether you love or hate Nike, doesn't matter. Looking at their commercials, there's a lot of substance in them. There's a lot you can look at. I don't know if you've seen this most recent one. I'm not going to play it because I don't want to take too much time, and also copyright is an actual issue, so we will not actually be playing it. But what I do want you to know is that Nike commercials are always a good way to start if you're not really sure. So for this one, it's talking about obviously athletes, but it's really relevant or kairos, yeah, because it's it came out on July 31st of this year. It talks about the pandemic. It talks about how sporting events have been put on hold, but it doesn't matter because we're still gonna, prevail. You can't stop us, because that's what the commercial is called. So there's one check off your box. What's the rhetorical situation? Then you're going to ask yourself, well, what's the writer's ethos? Well, first of all, Nike is a sports company, a multi-billion sports company who's been making this stuff for years. Also, they've got plenty of really famous athletes, LeBron James, Serena Williams, and that's just off the top of my head in this commercial, that are in here kind of endorsing their product and then kind of spreading their message. Then we look at the use of the writer or the person publishing this, their logos. Now, logos is a little bit harder to find, but if you watch Nike's commercials really, really carefully, you'll notice that the logo is strategically placed throughout each of the captions you see. You also notice that they've got a split screen here, and that's for an effect of some kind. So they've logically thought about how they're gonna show their message, and the Nike symbol is just ever so slightly always present. So their marketing, I mean, you might think this is a really good feel good commercial, and it is, but ultimately at the end of the day, they are marketing something, right? Then last, we look at pathos. Pathos, Nike loves to use pathos because they're looking at a couple of different things here. Sports has taken uh, a huge dip this year in terms of economics and morale. We had almost no spring sports, and lots of places don't have fall sports at all. So Nike's kind of trying to boost everyone's spirits in terms of, like, the sports world's not going to be stopped. It's going to be okay. And then they also use people from very diverse backgrounds, as you'll notice in this commercial. So that's another kind of, appeal to pathos. And just the general theme of "you can't stop us" is also going to provoke some emotions there. So I always like to point out Nike, and those types of, commercials they've got a lot to analyze within a short amount of time. You can also use car commercials. Or anything else that you're like thinking of that you've seen recently. Super Bowl commercials, if you pay attention to those, they're fun. But you can also look at just regular digital ads, and if you Google them, you could probably find quite a bit. The other one that I wanted to talk about is, let's see, Under Armour. That's what we want. Okay, so good old Misty Copeland is my hero. I won't play this one either because copyright's a thing. But I just want to show you this one because it's the same thing. I mean, it's an active wear company, but they're endorsing a very different type of sport and ballet, which is very, very close to my heart. So I always show this one because it's not as high paced as Nike, but it's definitely still getting the message across. They show Misty Copeland, who was one of the first principles of color for the ABT. They show her dancing while also reading out her rejection letters, and so the theme is "I will what I want." So there's plenty of pathos, logos, ethos in this as well, and with the rhetorical situation, because when she was first appointed as the principal for ABT, there weren't very many people of people of color in ABT at the time. So that's really awesome to have her represent this brand. So what you would do then is, let's say these were my two commercials that I'm going to compare and contrast. After you've listed all those questions and answered them, you'll then discuss how your two ads are similar and how they are different and how they're both successful in portraying rhetoric. So for this one, I'll go ahead and switch my screen back. For this one, both are of sports companies. Both have a slogan that is kind of short and to the point, but also trying to appeal to pathos. You've got "You Can't Stop Us" from Nike, and then you have "I Will What I Want" from Under Armour. The difference is Under Armour focuses on one athlete, and the athlete is not necessarily a common sport like you would think. It's ballet, which it's definitely very athletic if you haven't tried it. go for it. But the other one is focusing on a bunch of different athletes. So they're really appealing to a much wider audience than just Under Armour. Still getting a good message across, but just different ways of doing it. So those are ways that you can kind of, uh, when you're planning which ones to pick, think about the points you could make when you're comparing and contrasting. So I hopefully that was semi helpful to you, kind of going through those two ads. But if you need help picking one out or figuring out what you want to do, just let me know. This should not be a long assignment. It shouldn't take too long. So just kind of answer the questions on the page 66 and 67. I'm just going to show this again because why not? So go through each of these questions in both of your advertisements. And then once you've gone through those, then compare and contrast. You can do that in a Venn diagram. You can just write up a paragraph. You can do whatever you want, really. I'm totally fine with you being creative as you want, or you can make a video. I don't have to be the only one making the videos in this class, right? So thank you guys for listening to Module 6, and I'm really excited to see which ones you pick. I think this will be a fun I think this will be a fun assignment, and let me know if you guys have any questions. Thank you guys. So excited. Bye.